All right, welcome back to the program. Province columnist Mike Smith here with you on the afternoon drive. You may have heard that Google has now formed a parent company called Alphabet that will act as the mothership for all kinds of various ventures that Google is involved in. But why are they changing the name? What's wrong with that name Google? Why are they going to this name Alphabet now? Let's check in with Luca Chicon, who is a lawyer with the Boughton Law Group. Hi, Luca.
Afternoon, Mike. How are you doing?
Hey, thanks for coming on. Why is Google doing this?
Well, it seems like they haven't been entirely transparent in the news, but from what we can tell, it seems like it's a couple of main reasons are financial transparency and liability protection, it looks like.
Why is that necessary to change their name to do that?
Well, I think it's not even, I think this is part of the problem is that there's been a lot of misinformation out there, and it's not a name change. What they've done is they've changed the structure of the company such that the shareholders of Google are now the shareholders of Alphabet, so that Alphabet owns Google, and it's actually a different corporation owning the shares of Google than there used to be. So there's effectively no difference for shareholders except for that they now have shares of Alphabet instead. So it's not really a name change.
Okay, will the Google search engine still be called Google?
From what we can tell, that will be the same, and it's if you think about Google as an asset, it's probably the most lucrative asset in the new company Alphabet. So being that that's the case, I doubt very much will change with Google.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Google is really one of the most valuable brands in the world. I was looking at a Forbes magazine ranking that had it third place with an estimated brand value of $66 billion. Only
Exactly.
Apple and Microsoft ahead of them. So, that's huge.
Yeah, exactly. And this seems to be what's driving this change is that Google is looking to diversify their portfolio of business ventures and some of the more riskier propositions they want to get into. If they don't work out, with the previous structure could have affected the bottom line of Google. Now by having a different company owning the Google asset, which is going to be the prized possession, they can spin off other companies and separate out the potential risk of those other ventures from, worrying about Google being hit.
Okay, do you think this is a smart business move by them?
Oh, for sure. For sure. I think it's the financials will be much more transparent. They'll be able to see, because what they were doing already now was they were already engaging in these riskier ventures, but the financial risk was all mixed up in the financials of Google, so it was difficult to see what was going on. Now, by separating that out, it'll be much more transparent what's working and what isn't. And from a liability perspective, if I were a shareholder, I'd be feeling much more safe now knowing that my big asset, the search engine, is protected from any risk inherent to some other crazy idea that Google wants to try out.
It's interesting how the name Google has entered the English kind of lexicon as a word or a verb. I mean, everybody talks about if you want to check something out, you just Google it, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I suppose that's a good thing for Google to have the name of the company so common in everyday language, but is there a kind of a trademark risk there that if a name becomes almost too generic, it starts to lose its impact with
Definitely.
consumers as a product? I'm thinking of a product like aspirin, for example.
Yep. Or Kleenex or Xerox or all these things that
another one was a thermos or cellophane.
Yep, exactly. No, it's definitely a risk, and all they have to do is be very cognizant of ensuring brand protection by making sure that they have trademarks filed in other countries and ensuring that people understand Google is actually a named trademark and a brand owned by somebody. They've been doing a very good job of that, I think, and I don't think, as much as we do use Google as a term, it entering the lexicon, I think, they've got some smart people behind that company, and I'm sure they're monitoring this.
Are there any other examples of how companies have done things like this?
Well, I mean, you see it all the time in the local Vancouver marketplace, particularly with respect to real estate. And again, when we go back to this notion of protecting the assets, in Vancouver, real estate is a prized commodity, so you'll often see businesses separating out into different holding companies, real estate, so that they can have, say, the building that they operate out of owned by one company because real estate's so valuable here, and then they'll have the risky business in a different company such that if that business tanks, they're not worried about losing the asset of the property. And that's what exactly Google is doing here. They're just protecting themselves with these assets in different companies. And locally here, we see that all the time when it comes to real estate.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how some of these big companies and these successful brands, sometimes you see companies take risks. I'm thinking back, remember New Coke?
Yep.
That thing just fell flatter than a pancake. But it's interesting that a company like Google, I mean, what is this company doing so right? Why is it such a valuable brand, and why do you think that they're so successful?
Well, it's like anything. They had a great idea at a time when all the other similar products were inferior, and they managed to do something better than everybody else at a time when we all wanted it. And, it's partially luck, it's partially good product, and it's just finding a niche that consumers wanted.
Yeah, and the Google founders, as they go forward here with this thing, I mean, do they have to go through any kind of a court process to change this thing, or what about their shareholders?
Well, that's sort of the piece that we're unclear of. There hasn't been too much written yet or disclosed yet about how they're actually doing this. Now, I would suspect that if it's what we think, that they're exchanging the shares of Google for shares of Alphabet, the average shareholder may be impacted, but what we're led to believe and what's out there, the information seems to say that the voting shares are privately held by a few central, basically the Google insiders, and that the average shareholder doesn't really have much of a vote on what's happening, so there probably won't be much concern or barrier to doing what Google wants to do here.
Yeah, I think if I had a piece of Google, I'd be kind of happy what they're talking about here, because sometimes you get a large organization that is almost the bigger an organization becomes, the more sluggish it becomes, and its ability to adapt and to be have a little bit of agility in the business place seems to be further out of reach. Do you think this move by Google and this kind of rebranding of this kind of thing will help them with innovation, agility, and adaptability? I mean, this is the way these companies survive and make even more money.
Oh, for sure. Like you said, I mean, if I were a shareholder here, I would be, I'd be fully supporting this measure. And like I said, it affords them the luxury of taking risks in separate ventures now without potentially harming the treasured asset of the Google search engine, which will be separated out and protected. And so, they're looking at new products and new ideas, and now this allows them the flexibility to try different things that, some may work and some may not, but who would have known that a search engine like this would have back then? So, some of these will be great ideas and some will flop, and if I were a shareholder, I'd be quite happy to know that my asset that is working is being protected. Interesting
analysis, Luca. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
That is Luca Cheaton from Boughton Law. Boughton Law is CKNW's legal analyst and helps us explain the way the law shapes the news. Let's take a break here, and we got lots more coming up. Stick around.